So I want to talk about essentially being comfortable on a bike. And I mean this in the general context. 'Cause there's not one thing that's going to make you comfortable. It's a lot of things. So I'm going to start with the bike and then I'm going to talk about the fitting. So really this is a fitting concept video, but at the same time, you can't do a fitting on a bike that's just raggedy and falling apart and say you're going to be comfortable. It's kind of weird, right? I don't think that works. So first things first, I think you need a good bike. What does a good bike mean? It means you have gears that work, right? They're not going to be always like problematic, which means you need a cassette, you need a shifter that doesn't have play in it. Just, a general quality bike is the statement I would generally make. Brakes have to be solid, so they stop. Gears have to be good, and nothing can have a lot of play in it, like the brake levers. They shouldn't have play in it, because it's annoying. You can't be comfortable if you're always annoyed. So, and I think there's so many bikes out there, like literally, other than the low end bikes at a bike shop, that they're all going to satisfy the requirements. They're all going to satisfy the requirements of being quality. So that being said, so how do you get comfortable now that you have a quality bike? Is that all you need? Well, the answer, unfortunately, is no. Right? Just having a quality bike is not going to do it. Generally, a bike is and a body have to intersect, right? The body, a human body has to get on it, and the angles have to be right. How do you make it right? Well, first of all, let's start with the wrist. So there should be a straight ray emanating from your shoulder through your fingertips when you're holding the brake levers. So I was kind of showing my arm. You should have a straight ray when you're holding the brake levers on the lever part. That way you're not going to get any carpal tunnel kind of dynamics going on with your wrist. There's no reason to have a bent wrist when you're on the brake levers, ever. So that's number one. Just make sure the brake levers are comfortable, right? They're where they're supposed to be. And that'll help you become comfortable. That's not going to make you comfortable, but that's the first step. And what I'm going to be talking about is a quick way to do this, not the fundamentally logically proper way, but that's okay. So second, you have to lift the saddle to a place where you're, okay, let's put it this way. So you have to set the saddle height in such a way so you have a very slight knee bend at the furthest point from your hip. If your leg is ever straight, you risk tearing cartilage. So that's a big no-no. And if you're squatting, which most riders have their saddles too low, they end up kind of squatting. It's really hard to bike. It's just hard to pedal. It's like a lot of work. It's tough. And at the end of the day, if something's hard, you're just not going to do it. And if it becomes really, really hard, the further, you're doing the squat thing, I mean, I don't know that I could bike. In addition, it's not good for your joints. So overall, you want, a slight knee bend at the furthest point from, at the first point from your hip, when you're pedaling, right? So it's not quite 6 o'clock in the pedaling orientation. It's a little bit in front of 6 o'clock, but no big deal. So that's the saddle height, right? The saddle height. Is that going to do it? Well, that's not going to do it itself, but this one will. The third one is going to do it. So you want to actually make sure this is going to be adjusting. I'm going to talk about adjusting the fore aft adjustment of saddle. So forward backward adjustment of the saddle. So the deal is if the ball of your foot, it should be right in the middle of the pedal axle. If it's not in the middle of the pedal axle, we have to make it go into the middle of the pedal axle. So if the ball of your foot is in front of the pedal axle, you have to take your saddle and push it back a little bit on the rails until your foot goes back into the middle of the pedal axle. And otherwise, if your ball of your foot's behind the pedal axle, you just move that saddle forward. And when the ball of your foot is in the middle of the pedal axle and the other two requirements are set that we mentioned previous, you're actually going to be comfortable and you're going to be like, wow, this is kind of cool. It turns out a lot of people think, oh, the saddle's not right because I don't feel comfortable, or, they might consider grips. Usually it's saddles. But the truth is it's almost never the saddle. It's almost always the fitting. So before you go out and buy a saddle, make sure you go and do a quick fitting, right? And if you like this fitting, if you want a professional fitting, they have lasers nowadays. And I've seen like unbelievable stuff. The technology has really changed over the past, I'll say 2 decades. I had a professional fitting done about 2 decades ago, was my recollection. And I saw one, maybe a couple of years ago. I don't remember exactly when, and I was amazed. They used to use like a protractor kind of thing back in the day on my knee. Now it's all lasers. It's really different. It's interesting. Is all I would say. I think computer-based fitting now, I think, is $300 to $400, right? Is my understanding. So anyway, thank you all very much for watching. Get a proper fitting on your bike. Get a good bike, get a good fitting, and you'll be set. Thank you. Bye.